Good evening, everybody. I'm Richa Agarwal, CEO Emami Art and Kolkata Center for Creativity. Like Ushmita has said, we are all very excited and extremely humbled by the entire experience of what is coming, what we are understanding from the series of Emami Art Talks. Very excited to start the evening. So, just a little introduction that I'd like to give. The following is an excerpt from Mithu Sen's unbiography from her website. Mithu Sen is an earth-based artist, poet who studied painting at the Kala Bhavan, Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, India, and Glasgow School of Art, UK. Mithu Sen plays. She misses, she creates. Her practice revolves around creating situations of impossible possibility. She lets strangeness and strangers in, radically, hospitably. In doing this, she questions the boundaries of hospitality, identifies them, embodies them, inhibits them, and then refutes and ignores them, breaking them apart from within. Mithu Sen dislikes the word medium. She's lives. Samit Das, born in 1970 in Jamshedpur, studied fine arts from Shantiniketan Kala Bhavan and post-experience program from the Camberwell College of Arts, London, through British Council scholarship. He works in various mediums such as painting, photography, collages, and artist's book, creating multi-sensory environments through art and architectural installations. His fascination with the act of excavation has led him to build his own personal archives, which he links to the larger context of architecture, art practices in India. His research on Shantiniketan architecture started from his MFA studies, has culminated into a publication titled Architecture of Shantiniketan, Tagore's Concept of Space. He has curated a few history-based exhibitions like The Idea of Space and Rabindranath Tagore, and Resonance of Swami Vivekananda and the Art of Nandlal Bose. These few words, I'd request Ushmita to take the evening forward. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Before we begin today's session, I would like to remember the cultural stalwarts that we have recently lost. Artist Zarina Hashmi, Italian art critic, historian, and curator Germano Salant, actors Irfan Khan and Rishi Kapoor today. The losses we have incurred and continue to do so is incalculable, and we must come together in solidarity. I would also like to thank our audience for their wonderful response and interaction, be it a feedback from a young artist yesterday who says, and I quote, "I was getting so demotivated these days, but at last, when she, that is Pooja Iranna yesterday, was saying we create in studio first and then show the world, we know this to be true, but we needed to hear such words from another artist too." Another inspiring example is that of a young hearing impaired artist who has downloaded a special app to help translate our conversations in real time. Such feedback is much appreciated, and it has encouraged us to design more such exciting programs in the time to come. Today is the fourth episode of Emami Art Talks conversation series, and we have artist couple Mithu Sen and Samit Das with us. A warm welcome to you both. I would also like to remind all our viewers that they can write and share their questions via the question and answer icon that you can see at the bottom of your Zoom screens. We are also going to include a few selected questions from our Facebook Live audience, and I will try and accommodate as many as possible at the end of the conversation. Welcome, Samida and Mithu. I'll be sharing some of the works by each artist, and while we discuss and I ask them questions. Okay, so these are some of the images that Samita has shared with us. So Samita, while I show your images, the first question that I pose to you is, your work has several enduring focal points: architecture, space, archives, text, even time and space. which you have explored through diverse mediums such as drawing, assemblage, artist books, installations, photography, to name just a few. And you also mentioned to me yesterday that medium is just a tool to explore content and context. Could you talk a little about this, please?
Thank you, Ushmita and Richa, for a wonderful session. I'm really excited, and I make things very simple to give you an answer, since somebody has sent the questions to me. You see, the elements you have mentioned related or engaging with my art practice, these are all very important, at the same time very simple beats and pieces of a whole garlands which we bring into the art, as an art form. I consider it as a big garland. So this is a kind of a beats and pieces, and I'm the person who tried to weave together and put it together in a uniform garland or ununiform, I don't know, but something to present, something to speak, something to take to the larger audience. It's a kind of a big platter on your food plate, so one can understand, okay, this is what it is, this is what it is. Even if you understand this one, maybe you can try that one, because I need to open up the door for the larger audience. That is my whole idea and approach towards my art practice. Yeah.
And what about the various mediums or contexts? Like for instance, the artist books. You have a long, almost it goes back, I think, decade. Your engagement
Yeah,
with artist books.
you see, the 1999 in Delhi, I was not very happy with my single piece of images. I was just putting things together in a 3-4 images and stapling them together. Then one day I went to British Council to see exhibition, and that time the head of printmaking, Professor Paul Caldwell from Camberwell, he was showing his work, and he said, "Oh, you make artist book." I said, "What is artist book?" And he said, "Okay, this is called artist book actually." So I thought, wow, that's a kind of interesting term. I got introduced. Of course, I never realized that artist book even happened in India, like there's Indian miniature, the Jain miniature, there are many things actually. But that terminology has defined mid-90s or early 90s by Western critiques or theoreticians. So he's the guy who introduced me this term. And then he said, "Okay, well, why don't you apply to Camberwell College and you can learn artist book, even the bookmaking process." So that's how it started actually, because those days it was difficult to make any video, film, this and that. So it was a kind of an idea to put series of images, because even today I'm not very happy with my single image. That's why I call this a series, and series is updated or the bibliography is updated, something like that I use. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And artist's book or book and the text has kind of been part of your practice, and through your bibliography in progress project or earlier projects like New Bengal Hotel project, or even your book on Shantiniketan, you work with spaces and architectural structures fluidly moving between the past and the present. And how do these 2 points in time, the past and the present, reconcile within your own practice? And do also share this idea of the archive that you have created, your own personal archive, and where does that come from? And are these two linked?
It's a long question. Okay, let me brief you. The first thing is, the idea of space, which is always an integrated part in the book. You turn the page, you look at the structure, you feel, you smell. There are endless things actually you explore through your book. So when I look back, I find I have stayed certain places which is man-made spaces. Even Delhi is a man-made place. Like Shantiniketan, like Jamshedpur, it has started from a barren land even. So Delhi has its own history, and I'm living here for 24 years. And Delhi is a place where all the time you need to struggle with yourself. It's a struggle between self and me. You have to question your existence. And it's a kind of a living with dynamics. So that dynamics keeps me alive to make my artwork, my practice, making books, making installation, or whatever it is actually. Because I think it's a whole series, maybe comprise a body of work or kind of a statement. And second part of your question, that building archive. You see, I have struggled a lot looking at the materials and this and that. I'm not going for the politics of archive or the collection based and how, based on archive, how the Indian art history has created. I'm not going for that kind of a discussion today. But of course, it was certain choice I have developed through my studies, through my art history studies, all these things, and looking at art exhibition. Then I thought, no, let me look back and started building up in a collection. And of course, these archives are all closely related to my art practice. So first phase, I collect this raw material, I study, I write an essay, I do research-based exhibition. At the same time, I rebuild those archives through my visual language. That is one exhibition you have seen, the New Bengal Hotel or In Search of Frozen Music, all these things.
Yeah. So just going back to the In Search of Frozen Music. So this kind of, this work for me, amongst all the other images that I've shown, it kind of encapsulates this idea of the past and how you look at it through the lens of an archive, and also how you also write. So this work almost falls at the threshold of your archiving practice, your artistic practice, and your book writing, authorship. Is that? Do you agree with that?
Well, you see, I'm a primarily an artist. I have studied fine arts from Shantiniketan. I'm not a kind of a regular academician and who did PhD, and I have a good skill to write and all. I mean, everything starts from the image only, because I started looking at the whole Tagore book has started from looking at 20,000 or more than 20,000 images sitting in Shantiniketan and various places in India.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, the text has been built up now. It may transfer as a book, as an essay, whatever. But what about this image translation? So as an artist, because end of the day, I believe on hands-on practice. I don't believe on that manufacture process and kind of making multiplication, this and that. No, it's just a very personal hands-on practice, I believe. And I started kind of animating those archives through my visual art practice, whatever I wanted to do. Maybe it's drawing, maybe it's a laser engraving, maybe it's the next media, whatever. Medium is a very secondary. I mean, I'm interested first, okay, what exactly I wanted to convey. And easiest way I wanted to convey, because this is my whole motto. सहज तरीके से कठिन चीज को समझाना, यही मेरा सबसे बड़ी चैलेंज है. ये मुझे कहा था दो आदमी ने, एक बहुत बड़े हिस्टोरियन, इतिहासकार, the finest historian, the Dr. Shabusachi Bhattacharya, and also Rani Chandu. कि कठिन चीज को सहज तरीके से समझाना. अगर हम समझा नहीं पाए तो उसकी जिम्मेदारी हमारी है. हम समझते हैं कि this is my problem, it is not clear within me actually, that's why I can't convey to you. So yeah, I'm open to it actually. So always, this is my effort, the simplest and easy way I should convey my art practice.
Very interesting. And also in continuation of what we were just discussing, that आप अपने काम में बहुत तरह के roles play करते हैं. I mean, you take up multiple. In your work, you take up multiple roles, like artist as a curator, artist as an archivist, artist as the writer. Can you reflect on how you inhabit these various roles and what is the common ground that you find? I mean, this is in continuation of what you've already said something, but if you can elaborate on that, and especially with view to the book that you've written, which is a very interesting book. And how did this come about?
Now I'm a big critic of this book even. I'm
that's even better. That means we are moving on. You know how you have to look at, re-look at things, I guess.
I never called myself as a curator. Always, all my publicity material, I prefer to write concept and research. That's how I work actually, because curated is a very archaic term. The British, the Victoria and Albert Museum curator, that's the Henry Coley. They have started all these terms actually. It's a very archaic term in that sense. And I don't do that kind of a curation. So it is my interest, whatever is my own problem through my art practice. It's all my burning question. It's nobody else's problem. ये मेरा प्रॉब्लम है और किसी का प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. And whenever I face the problem, I try to go back to the study, look at the history, look at the archive, look at the oral history, folk, region, whatever I get actually. And that's how the whole process starts. It grows not that I have just made some final statement. Even through this book, I never made any final statement because any historian or a history should not make any final statement.
Yeah, it's
ongoing process.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. Exactly, it's an ongoing.
Yeah,
process.
it's a continuous process. Yeah. Even I have a big problem with the using terminology in Indian art. But should not use the term which is used by Western theoretician.
Right.
Because our economy, our industrialization, the state, the country's development is totally different. And now you see the COVID has proven that area. The neoliberalism and globalization, all these things totally went wrong. Other day I was listening the whole CEO from the Mercedes bench, and they were showing how they got a disaster with the Chrysler and Daimler contract.
This is a very interesting conversation. Perhaps
going for all those.
Perhaps we would need another session for this.
Because then it will be a different thing.
Yeah, we could really go on and discuss this, but unfortunately we do have a constraint.
People are refreshing and with a good energy.
Yes. So if we move on to Mithu's work now, and then we can come back to asking some questions to both of you. So I shall now play a short video by Mithu, which she in her inimitable tongue-in-cheek humor calls How to Be a Successful Artist, and the pun being in the words, of course, how it is spelled. And in this short piece, she employs performance, lingual anarchy, wordplay, humor, satire, absurdity, all lead motifs of her practice. Can you hear the sound?
No.
There is no sound.
There is a sound. I don't know.
The sound is not there.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I should.
Yeah, my sister is saying no. Zoom me. Ushmita, do you want to play the sound? Sound is really important. Necessary to understand the language.
So Mithu, now that we've seen that, and I can go on to my first question while I go through the slides. The element of absurdity is a tool well employed to shock. It also allows for logical inconsistency and contradiction, be it in literature, theater, or the avant-garde experiments in the art of the 1920s and 30s that rejected known language as mean of communication, subverted logic, negated rationalism. We also see a different kind of absurdity in experiments by contemporary artists, for instance, Francis Alice in his Narcotarium. How do you position your approach within the continuum of these earlier experiments or ongoing ones?
Should I use borrowed language or my language?
Maybe a little bit of yours and also
you combine both.
You combine both.
So if I speak in English, it's not my language, and so don't judge me. And it's a tiring process to be judged again and again by every now and then with everything. So even when I make a drawing and with my
utmost skill or aesthetical sense or everything, it looks great. I understand that skill. I understand and I appreciate the craft. But then I also see like the demand is growing through the visuals and not and in the surface. So after a couple of years of my professional, kind of performance, um, I got little. I think I got little exhausted with the world of repetition, and that repetition and this creating some kind of values in it, and then and again that consumption of these values. Uh, I just thought like I maybe it's my lacking that I never thought what actually art is and what am I as an artist. So instead of learning, because there is a vast area of unending, informations and knowledge, I thought of going reverse. So a couple of years back, I thought that why not I undo myself, undo my world, undo each and every meaning I have experienced through all the scholars or masters have said. Undo it's not in the sense of like a negative sense. It's not to negate. It's not an antithesis. It's a something to explore further, or put it in a position where it will create some kind of ambiguity, and you will find yourself in a state of in-betweenness. I mean, exactly the time right now we are having an unknown space of, in-betweenness. We are not there, neither here. So it's like that constant challenge force you to be in that kind of mental state, and to create another world, a parallel world, which is like an unworld for me. And it is not like, it's not, I did not invent or discover something. I mean, it's more like it is in our, it is in humankind, it is in our civilization, it is in our history and myth everywhere. You'll find Mithu Sen, you'll find a character, you'll find in Little Prince, you'll find it like in Dadaism, in Fluxus, like everywhere you'll find a space to breathe. And Sukumadoy, I grew up with the main, like that. If I put myself as a Bengali, going, my whole upbringing was with literature because my mother is a poet. My whole house was full of books and music. So how, like in my DNA, it has been kind of embedded.
Right.
So when you say the word absurdity or some kind of a nonsensical, I first critique that word, because we always in our cognitive mind, we understand a word with its political identity. So why not we question that position? Like, today's normal is called new normal. That the constant, the new terminology, like it's coming and imposing us, and we are without questioning, without critiquing, we are kind of adapting or really thinking it's a new normal and accepting like that life. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes I think that is too overpowering, and I mean, I am bothered with that. So I just thought like, as a play, but the play with the dire politics, like understanding the politics of play, I started playing with word, because word is something, whether it's a sonic or it's a, like a visual image, it always kind of resonance inside me, in my blood. I'm very sensitive with the hearing, so the sound, and I'm very sensitive with the words and its meaning, and I'm a collector of words. So I just grab all those floating words and then I create a composition, and I understand there is something is lacking called grammar. and where my grammar is not not applied rightfully, which is actually a construct by some kind of governance, I am judged. So I think earning become a provocation as a tool for me, and I play with the cognitive brain of the human psyche, like whether it's my viewer or my audience or my participant or co-performer or my friend or family. So constantly playing and redefining the meaning of something which has already been constructed as a chip in our system, I think I hack.
Right.
So this absurdity for me is not an absurdity. The nonsense is not a nonsense. It's rather unnonsense, I would say. So, I mean, of course, and it's not that something first time I am confronting. It is so strongly embedded, whether it's Tarkovsky or Tino Shegel or Francis Elias and Sophie Calle, Adrian Piper. I see that kind of absurdity with the typical viewer. Absurdity is it's a perception. You call it absurd because it is.
Because you're positioned in a certain place and you're looking.
Yeah, so I think that human perception is something where we easily and without questioning consume something, and this whole trade of that consume it's a form of consumerism. It's a form of capitalism. Like how you capitalize certain kind of terminology.
Tell me something when we were.
It makes me think, and I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not talking about talking something with a visual as a visual artist, with some kind of a lineage, but it's a thought, it's that understanding, and it's my curiosity, it's my hunger that constantly chase me.
Right.
And that's why whatever I make, which I have earned as a skill and my draftsmanship, I try to express that in my process. And you must be knowing that a couple of years back I started creating a contract or like an artist manifestation or declaration. I call all my art the tangible form of art, what we call as art till now, in a collective voice, I call them byproduct. Because, and without knowing and being very clear about what is the main product, it's like that, that quantum state of your quantum philosophy. You know that this exists, that molecule or something, but you cannot really explain. So that kind of absurdity, if it is at all absurdity, is something that I live with.
Right. So, so another interesting thing that you said when we were having a conversation, that your process is simultaneously deliberate as well as very instinctive. So I really, it's opposites, but then again in your work it has been together. It's been the two sides of the same coin. So could you talk a little bit about this?
Well, it's I think I again try to put it in a frame like how our that human brain actually operates and functions. It's like that cognitive part, and another is like that our affective or that sensory part. And the duel between these two constantly, kind of, earlier I used to easily be, kind of feeling feel inferior. I had a huge inferiority complex that I don't know enough, or always comparing with somebody who knows more. Day by day it became like so strange, because then I started comparing myself with Wikipedia or Google. So that human ability and human brain started challenging and competing and getting depressed with the technology. So for me, that cognitive part or knowledge of information, it's not cognitive also is with all of these things, but the knowledge of information that we feel proud of become very narrow, and it was not as important as life in a broader aspect. I think because I never got a proper understanding of poetry through Google Media. There is some kind of interpretation, translation, but the feeling when I read a poem, like suppose one of my mom's poem or my sister's poem, that feeling I have, that internalize, that emotion it conducts, it's never a given. I mean, even scientists can give you some kind of chemical construct. So I think, like more and more we are depending on this kind of cognitive junctures, and, like the provided informations, same as how the government is actually imposed, more and more we are getting dependent or slave of that kind of systems. But human being is not like a slave. They don't want to be slave, as when I said, the new normal will be, we will be only wearing something on top and will not kind of think about or care about what we are wearing on the bottom, whether we have a shoes or pants, not. So this new normal thing is like how human behavioral pattern is coming, and we don't have an appendix anymore. So we have to think about the functionality of every aspect of our life, and we have to question, if I really don't need a pant, I will not wear a pant from tomorrow. That is my decision, but I will not let you judge why I have done it or why I haven't. I am clear and I will do that. So I think I always like to, and in that sense, I become many times a very funny and humorous character. And I completely admit and agree and say that yes, because I need to entertain myself when the whole world is going to lockdown, something like that. I think this lockdown happened for me a couple of years ago. And slowly I'm trying to provide that lockdownness, or, that this kind of things into my practice and into my life, and through me, with my surroundings. So lockdown physically happened. I did not go out from my main door for last more than 5 weeks. It is surprising because I am a person who is constantly active.
Mm-hmm.
But this, even to understand my own body and the activity, how that channelize activeness into something else is fascinating.
Right.
And so I was actually slow, I think, a couple of years ago. I was acting that I'm active, but now I feel I'm much more active and energetic, and that superficial slowness, or the stopping kind of, everything is ending and stopping kind of emotion is there, but it's not. I deliberately and consciously and emotionally did not create a single piece of so-called art in this period. But I think I am the most productive person during this process of understanding another state of, our consciousness. And
Right.
that is, I think, very liberating, very empowering. And I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, I think that's
Sorry, I talk too much.
no, not at all. We are here to listen to you. Why do you say that?
Okay,
But yeah, on a lighter note, let's talk about Shantiniketan and how you met and what role, because I know it's a very important space. Almost like I wouldn't say a physical space, but it's a very important space for both of you. And so, talk a little about yeah.
Mithu can say first, then maybe later on me.
That's up to you both to decide who wants to go first.
The dynamics, so she can drive the car first. I have to start my car.
Shantiniketan is, it's never a thing for me. So it's not even like an, I don't know what is the exact vocabulary, but it is a way of life, that whole idea. So it is, of course it is a physical space, but it never left me, neither I live it. So it is in my, like in my system, it is in my, it is a vocabulary for me. And I love romanticizing about Shantiniketan with whatever, like extension it might require. But it's also, I'm really privileged and blessed that, like I found that vocabulary which is named as Shantiniketan, but which is actually everywhere, and it's always there. I don't miss it because I'm there. And I think Shantiniketan also don't miss me because, like I am Shantiniketan. What can be more?
I think we understand what you mean, because
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not.
when we are away from here, always when we were students and we were away from here,
It's a genesis of
it
my
just is.
my selfhood and my confidence and my love.
And also the person next to you whom you met in Shantiniketan.
Yes, I mean that was like I that is a joke, like So he was my first boyfriend, and eventually, I'm a couple. By the way, when you said like there will be a couple talk, I was overexcited. You said like couple of couples will be there. I thought like we'll be all shuffling, like not like a couple, but I'll be like talking to Prashanto, and Prashanto will be talking.
Prashanto,
That's why you dragged him in very.
about my ragging.
Because of both of you, I'm here today. Otherwise,
And I deliberately wanted that couple. So I think I feel myself like I'm married to Shantiniketan, and I'm multiple times I'm married, and when I'm married to him, and after so many years of these things, Shamit gave me a very interesting name from the very beginning of our marriage. That's called visiting wife.
Don't blame Corona, because that's a more serious issue now. Now people don't want to say I'm from this and that because Corona is already knocking at the door.
No, I will not bring things. I bring different things, and even if I bring Corona, I will keep it inside me. So, and so yes, like Shantiniketan is like, it's my married life.
That's so sweet. What about you, Shamita?
Well, you see, I have studied 1 year in Government Art College, and somehow I didn't like to continue there. Then one of my friends, Shubhashish Shah, I don't know whether he is online or not. Shubhashish told me that, Shamit, let's go to Shantiniketan and see. I think he will like that place. He will love it. So the day it was a year ending actually, and it was a fantastic tradition in Shantiniketan. But that time I didn't realize it actually. The white Rangoli, the Alpona, they are finished and they are filling up with the colors. So it is a kind of a juncture point of year ending and beginning of the year. It's an invitation of the new year, so bringing with the multicolors. It's a fascinating concept of the public art or contemporary art, whatever you say. But those days I didn't realize it. I told my friend Biman Das, he is somewhere in Kalimpong. I said, ki, chhad to todero shab nakami, kalke Shubhashish, tomorrow we will do the watercolor outdoor. That was a typical word we used to use in Government Art College, the outdoor watercolor. So we did watercolor, maybe 5 or 10, I don't know. I was very skilled to do all those things. And sitting near the Lal Bath. So me and Shubhashish under a tree, and I told Shubhashish, well, I think I love this place. We need to get into it. But somehow Shubhashish didn't get it and I got it. And what I like about that place, okay, if you want to do something, you can do. That is the ultimate for it. Other day, someone asked me, should I join Shantiniketan for art course? I said, first you need to ask yourself, because my teacher, who was Jamkarda's classmate, Ibuchova Singh, he never told me to go to Shantiniketan, study fine art, this and that. I explored my way. And Prashant would agree that I never come to his home whenever I am in Shantiniketan. I go to Shantiniketan almost alternating once sometime.
I've seen you so many times outside the park guest house, which is just like
that is my
you never come.
that's my research center.
That is the goal we'll pick later. But
But
right now there are so many questions that are coming in. So maybe I can ask a few.
Definitely, I must tell you that the Shantiniketan has to explore more. I think Shantiniketan has not explored yet. Still has to explore, for me at least.
Not
The
for me.
book is not enough. I'm great critic of my book myself, even I need to extend that. So yes, I need to learn more. Prashanta, will you take me again?
Yeah, sure.
No.
So there are lots of questions. Shamida, maybe we can go on to a little bit questions. Oh my God, there's so many.
You can combine some questions. Just go
So
through it.
Prashant Salvi says from Mithu Sen, first of all, congratulations for your performance of APT 9. And his question is, how do you look towards sexuality, eroticism? And he would like to know about your work, Phantom Pink.
Sorry?
He wanted to know how do you look at sexuality and eroticism in your art?
You know, I mean, well, this is some, well, I don't know if I was expecting this question again, but sexuality for me is like a self-confidence, and it's to enter a psyche of a human being, and it's not gendered, like, really.
Right. So for Samita, how do you explain the use of text in visual communication, as that has been the topic of my dissertation? This is a question from Keshav Lahoti for Samita.
Sorry, say it again.
Keshav Lahoti asks Samita, how do you explain use of text in visual communication? This is also his topic of dissertation. So he is asking you this question.
Okay, this is a kind of a long discussion. To cut short the long story, I must tell that the alphabet, the text, I mean, whatever text, I must say the specific one, the alphabet should speak itself. So alphabet has to have some kind of a statement to create a conceptual visual or some strong content, whatever. It is not just a typography, mere typography, but it should go beyond of typography, I must say. In the context of graphic design or something, if you ask, in that point of view.
So Palakshi Das asks you, both of you, how Shantiniketan Schooling of Art helped you in your journey?
How?
How Shantiniketan Schooling of Art helped you both in your journey?
I think, you know, we don't see Shantiniketan schooling is such, at least, you know, like what I have experienced is not limited in the classrooms and lectures. Even the teachers, or, you know, like all our dadas or didis, I think the basic foundation they teach is like how you explore life and how you really explore everything through different senses. You know, like it's just not like you read certain kind of essay or history or something. Along with this all, there is a huge, like, you know, kind of 60% of the thing is given to the students as a freedom to explore life. And I think that is the base test, I think, teaching, you know, like as a student, I received and I really explored. Because apart from that, that usual regular classes and, you know, like submissions and everything happens. But there was not much restriction of where I should go and I should not. There's not much, many things actually, you know, and I don't know, maybe I was so spontaneous, it came very organically that, you know, just going to Santal village for study. Even to embrace that as my practice of my kind of academic thing, I was very excited, because it was not something that I knew that can be possible. And Shantiniketan gave me, as a 17 and a half or 18 years old, like when I came with so much of kind of excitement to explore the world. And the teachers, I mean, even the simple thing that what the difference between a sketch and study, that my restless mind within half an hour in our first tree study class, I made 3 sketches. And when I came to that our group teacher, and he said, no, these are not study. Study is like meditation. You calm yourself, and that. And slowly, end of the year, I realized that how I am for hours and hours, just sitting in a village, looking at a tree and not even doing anything. So my study almost became invisibly, kind of internalized without giving a form in a paper or, kind of a surface. So that kind of teaching method, I think somehow in Shantiniketan, I always failed. And I know like a lot of people will say like, I'm not critical, I'm over romanticizing, but I do that. And I am a romantic, and I strongly believe in this romanticism, because everything at the end you cultivate within yourself, and it is actually given, and it matters how much you are actually absorbing. So my way of absorbing Shantiniketan and its schooling and teaching process is enormous. It's
Okay, this is a question, Mithu, from your sister, Mohsen. And Mohsen says, Mithu Sen, you said Shantiniketan is your married life. On a lighter note, is it like a park or like Jurassic Park?
I rather prefer it as a Jurassic Park, because there is, every moment there is an anxiety and challenge, and a dual, what you call these things, like you fight, you would not fight, but there is a struggle to survive, and each one wants their own individualist entity to sustain, and and that is a fun for life, because both are equally very powerful and important. Human may looks like a small little entity in front of a dinosaur, but actually it's not about that physicality of their thing. It is about that how the mind and that the conscious decisions, each moment and every moment we are applying to each other. So I think it is a Jurassic Park. It's a beautiful, beautiful Jurassic Park.
As long as we are not the T-Rexes out here. Shamita, this is a question for you. Nice to look at you both together. Sir, is your architectural composition and components relative to your visual reference? Shaurav Haldar asks, is your architectural composition and components relative to your visual references, or does it come from random unconsciousness?
I think both the way it is mixed together. I mean, in continuation to that question from Palakshi, I respond to that. The Shantiniketan taught me to understand the larger context of space, rather a breathing space, and which I continued sitting in Delhi or anywhere in the world. So refer to that, I must say the architectural reference always I use from a referential material from my archive, because what I understand from the past history, either it is a Western art or Indian art, whatever, pure abstraction has a huge issue. And I might get into that trap, so I don't use pure abstraction, the formal geometrical exercise. Rather, I prefer to use with a strong reference where I am interested in. That's how I am interested about the city, how city lives with the history. And that is how wherever I go in India or anywhere in the world, I try to understand how city is living with the history and contemporary. And of course, there is a famous book by Louis Mumford, The City in History. And also, in continuation to that, again, I must mention 2009, I did a show. It's called CE, Conforming European Standard. It was my idea to look at the Indian cities. Why do we need to go for European standard? Who said it? And we had a wonderful text in the catalog. One can download it. It's a famous urban designer from India, K.T. Ravindran. And also my conversation with the collector, Abhishek Podar. I don't know Abhishek is online or not. So, those are all published material. And now I can see in this situation how India is dynamic. India's dynamicity is amazing. Yeah.
Somebody peeping.
Always there is a reference. Without reference, I can't leave actually. I'm a copy master.
Mithu, the next question is for you. This is from Ananya Datta Gupta. I am fascinated by your role playing as artist jester, an artist dismantling herself. Do you think the jester's art is fundamentally about discovering that ugly is beautiful?
I will rather not touch the concept of ugly and beautiful, words, like the terminology. But I'll definitely try to introspect on the word or role play. Yes, like our life is like a matrix of different selves and issues and ideologies and identities. So I never see an identity as a monolith form. And in my practice also, where I do that earning or unsettlement towards that hierarchy of like the constructed hegemonies, I also say that, I would also actually bring one of my most favorite philosopher poet, Fernando Pessoa, who has actually created like a heteronomous character, so you can be one, but there are different selves of you, and each one is unique. It's not a pseudonym that you are taking another name to create. It's a fascinating kind of a philosophy. And in all of our life, we are already kind of projected with multiple kind of or we are jazzed with multiple kind of compartmentals, like me, I can say like I'm an artist, I'm a feminist artist, I'm a female artist, I'm an artist from a global south, I'm an artist, dark skin. So that kind of different politics behind each name, there is a geopolitics, and there is a different way to enhance and capitalize, or advance capitalize the exotic of your identity. And I actually like to grab them all. I'm not denying them, but I think I like to shuffle them all and create a grotesque and morbid and absurd, nonsensical kind of identity, where I will play that role, but I will actually enjoy the viewer who are fantasizing that role and kind of falling into a trap, rather like kind of it's a trap, like provocation is always my tool, because this is one thing I try to play into the politics of my practice, is like constantly playing the role of multiplexes of different characters, and whether as a visual image it comes or as a performer with the sound, or even today how that new normality we are adapting. And I am today coming, if you consider it as a performance, you can, but it is actually a raw material or data in a virtual scale. How every moment, every seconds, a role is translating, or our whole idea of something is redefining by itself. So, I don't know, what was the question? I forgot.
No, it was about your role playing as an artist jester and dismantling yourself,
Yeah, because, there shouldn't be any specific and stigma kind of things that you are like this. That helps you to judge yourself. One is like definitely it's a multiple projection on you, whether you are a good daughter or wife or a good artist, or you are like blah blah blah, like you are performing the perfect role of that position. Another is like self-obsession and narcissism. I think that also gives us a limitation, and then these two combine and create a mythical being, and that myth is the problem.
Right.
My interest is like to unmyth that, that the politics of myth making.
Okay.
So that myth making is a pattern, a formula, whether it's as a style of your work or the flower in your eyes or coal in your, you have to understand that myth making is something to capitalize and normalize a new format, and it will come to a mainstream. So I try to role play and slip from one to another by changing that myth, and that disturbs that market, that disturbs the capitalist monolith structure, because you cannot grab one particular kind of ness. Your identity cannot be branded. So, that politics is quite interesting. And if you understand that politics, you can play with that politics. Yeah, so,
Yeah, so, this conversation could really go on, and it's so fascinating, but unfortunately we've, not unfortunately, I think it's a good thing that we've really gone over time today. It was so fascinating to hear you both. We're going to have to wrap it up, but with one final question that we've been putting to actually everybody. You did actually answer it in a different way, Mithu, but just to ask both of you, for all these young artists out there, right now, would you like to say something?
No Gyan this time. Eat good food, enjoy, I think have a good sleep, be confident, do believe yourself. I think that makes more sense actually. Do believe yourself and be confident. And I think constant cultivation within you, having a dialogue between self and me, that's very, very important. It is not a Gyan. This is what I do. I can share with you. This is what I do. If you ask me, I do this practice like a pranayam. I do it. So I'm not a person to give a Gyan here, but this is very, very important, and it is helping me a lot. It is a constant process. There is no Gyan, there is no ultimate word for anyone actually. I'm not the person to do it.
For me, I think when we were yesterday, I think we were talking about, and I think that the young generation's angst or fear comes because of this time, the turmoil we are living. I think the best thing, if we really, and in a quite abstract way, if we can think about the shape of the time, and because time is a relative term, all of our fear and angst are actually related with the word time. If we can abstract, this time, if we can flatten that idea of time, there will be nothing to lose, because now in one point we are thinking we have too much of time. The next moment we are thinking that, oh, we haven't done these things. So that kind of constant ups and downs of, kind of how we are using time, because we are so extremely kind of constructed with the idea of time that we cannot go beyond the dimension. So it is better to think I am in this period, I am by default at home, not in my studio, but you won't believe I have produced an entire solo exhibition in last 5-6 weeks without giving it any kind of physical execution, without giving it any kind of shape or form, just exploring the idea of nothing, because the world is already over exhausted with our byproducts. So pausing with that, and by force, when you are not producing anything, but who are producing, I'm really appreciating that, because everybody has their own internal psyche to, kind of execute in some way. But for me, it is like I was many times told to calm down and not to work so much. I'm like a 20 hours a day. So it's an addiction. And I just realized that I am almost ready with a whole exhibition which will never be executed or exhibited in any kind of physical space as well as any virtual online show. This is what I have developed. So for young generation, I will also say that to do this practice, it's not yoga, not meditation, just to think about some abstract concept where you are actually producing by not producing, where you are actually chasing by not chasing. So, like that constant earning with the concept, you have a desire and dream, and just go reverse and see that how it means. And in a very practical note, we all should know, us and young generations, that art is something, it's not for our everyday life survival. We have to have some skill and something to survive and to earn things for life. And that earning is very physical for our everyday bread and butter. So if we think that our, whatever that art in that profound movement is coming, will be overnight capitalized and become a great masterpiece or museum piece and will be collected item, it's a misconception that our generation is having, and that's a problem. But we should really love art as a formless way, but still continue practice it as hobby. So after my byproduct, I'm not devaluing by any means. I think all my art will be even more profound artistically and aesthetically, but I'll call them my hobby.
On that very interesting note, we will come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much, Ushmita and Mithu, for being with us. And today, I think we've really, even before the session started, we were having a unusual conversation, and now we've had a lot of question answers. And
thank you all on Prashanto, thank you for being in the frame, and Richa and Emami, because for me it's just not the conversation, but it's also a moment when you gave us a chance to put kajal and comb my hair and change our shirt. It's a relief.
And the upper part.
At least the upper part, like you said.
All and thank you everyone whomever is listening it, because
thank you so much.
I'm totally dressed up, Prashanto. You can come with a whole camera and shoot me. Proper rocky dress I'm wearing now.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking forward for many
Thank
more.
you so much. And hope to see everybody again tomorrow. We have Nancy Adijania and Ranjit Hoskote. Please join us tomorrow at 4.
Looking forward.
Looking forward.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Namaskar. Pranam. Pranam to all panelists, all who are listening. Thank you.
And thank you to all Mithu's colorful, unnamed unbabies.
Yes. Studio.
Thank you. Bye.